Federal Communications Commission voted and agreed to begin work on, are you ready for this? Regulating the Internet, the last bastion of free and open expression left in America. First, they want to regulate the free market, banking, insurance, automobile manufacturing. Then they want to regulate the media, and now they want to regulate the Internet. Is nothing sacred from government intervention in what is supposed to be our free and open society? According to Internet experts and advocates like our next guest, the FCC's proposals to regulate are based on bad and ambiguous data, similar to almost everything else the government does. Joining me now is Shelly Roche of BiteStyle.tv. Shelly, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Hi, Judge. Great to be back.
Thank you. Why do they want to regulate the Internet? I mean, if it doesn't work, if it works right, why not leave it alone?
Right. I mean, that's really the big issue here, is that right now there's really no justification to change the way things are working. You know, the FCC already has these guiding principles in place that deal with net neutrality, and if an ISP decides to violate some of these principles, you know, they're going to hear from their customers. They're going to have an irate customer base to deal with. And even if that doesn't keep them in line, they still have the threat of FCC action because of these principles that are currently in place.
Well, what are the regulations what are the regulations that are there now? I mean, suppose an internet service provider were to say to you at BiteTV.com, well, we don't like the content of what you're saying, so we're going to limit you to 20 rather than 24 hours a day. What recourse would you have against that provider?
Well, I think my biggest recourse would be with, you know, the people who follow my content and that sort of thing. And if they weren't able to access it and they were upset about it, they would let the internet provider know. But if that didn't work, then the FCC does have, you know, the authority to then go in and investigate and see what's going on and then, you know, take some action. So there have been a few cases in the past where this has been necessary, but, you know, despite what everybody's claiming, it's really kind of an overblown fear.
I would think, Shelly, that if an internet service provider was trying to affect the content of the speech of someone that was using the provider, the user would just go to another provider. I mean, there's so many providers around. Won't the free market solve the problem that the FCC imagines in its own creative brain exists in reality?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's the way it works. You vote with your wallet. You know, you pay money to support a company that gives you a product that you think is valuable. And once that product stops being valuable, you move on to another product. And we do have, you know, options for different kinds of internet access. And if your provider stops giving you the content you want in the way that you want it, then you can simply switch to another provider. So, you know, you can see that these changes are really not necessary at this point.
What are the regulations that have actually been proposed? What would they do, and how would they interfere with free speech?
Well, they're subtle changes, but important changes to kind of the existing principles. And really, they get into some kind of technical detail, but in general, they're requiring, for example, an iPhone. You can't connect it to your computer and use it as a modem to access the internet on your computer. So one of the new changes would force iPhones to allow laptops and computers to connect to them to access the internet. So, you know, one of the repercussions of this is that iPhone isn't going to offer their, you know, basic low-priced plan because they're going to have to pay for a lot higher usage of bandwidth because of connecting these other devices to it.
Do you know anybody that logs on in the morning or in the evening and says, you know what, there's just not enough regulation here. I need less freedom as I'm using my laptop.
You know, actually, some of the biggest proponents of net neutrality, the supporters, are proudly socialist, and they are pushing this because they think the internet is a right and that it should be a public utility, and nobody should have to pay for it. And furthermore, things like ads shouldn't be allowed. Anything that's a, capitalistic approach to the internet, a way to monetize the activities on the internet should be kind of done away with and should be fought. So that's kind of where these people are coming from.
I kiddingly asked you about, is there anybody who goes on their laptop and says there's not enough regulation? But I should have not been surprised at your answer, because here we go again, Shelly, with the big government types confusing a good, like a laptop and the internet, with a right, like freedom of thought and freedom of expression. They would probably have a government-issued, owned internet and issued laptop if they could have their way.
Yeah, right. And there's been talk of getting the state involved in the media, and it's kind of this big plan that they have, and this is kind of where it starts. This is how they get the ball rolling. So, we really don't want this to happen. We want things to stay the way they are. Everything's working great now. Let's keep it that way.
Tell me about Byte-Style TV and what you guys are up to.
Well, it's basically a site where, I post little bite-sized action alerts so that, if something comes up like this FCC net neutrality thing and, other issues, the Federal Reserve and what have you, when actionable items come up that are pretty easy to do, I like to let people know about it, and just keep people posted on what's going on and things that they should know that they may not hear about on, the regular media outlets.
Shelly Roche, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for coming back to Freedom Watch.
Thanks for having me. It was good to be back.
You can catch today's show on foxnews.com/freedomwatch and on Sirius 145 XM 168 or online at foxnewstalk.com at 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. From New York, defending freedom. Until the next time, stay free, America.